128 Japanese prisoners said they would all marry him. A black medic, enemy women, and one vow that could destroy them all. Okinawa, 1945. When a landmine exploded, he didn't run away. He ran toward the blast, shielding prisoners with his own body, saving lives his own army said weren't worth saving. The women honored him, called him worthy, something his white commanders had never done. But respect shown to a black soldier, that was unforgivable. False accusations, forced confessions, a court-martial designed to erase him. Then, in one moment of collective courage, all 128 women knelt. Not in romance, in truth. When the enemy sees your humanity, but your own country refuses to, what does that make you? And how far will those who have nothing left go to defend a man the world says doesn't deserve dignity? The sun rose over Okinawa with the color of old blood. Corporal Isaiah Miles stood outside the medical tent and watched the convoy roll in. Dust covered everything. The trucks groaned to a stop near the provisional holding area. Captain Huxley stepped down from the lead vehicle. His boots hit the mud with authority. Behind him came the prisoners, 128 Japanese women and nurses. They walked in tired lines with their heads down. Isaiah waited with his medical kit. The war had made him steady. 25 years old, and he had seen enough wounds to last a lifetime. His hands no longer shook when blood appeared. "Miles," Huxley called out. His voice carried across the morning air. "Process these prisoners. Document injuries. Basic care only." Isaiah nodded. He moved toward the women. They flinched when he approached. Huxley laughed. The sound made Isaiah's jaw tighten. "Look at that. They're terrified of you, boy." Several white guards joined the laughter. "Half a man guarding enemy women. That's about right?" Isaiah kept his face empty. He had learned that skill in basic training. Show nothing, and they could not hurt you more. He opened his kit and began his work. The first woman had a cut on her arm. Isaiah cleaned it carefully. His movements were gentle despite the mockery behind him. The second woman would not look at him. Fear lived in her dark eyes. "These people don't deserve kindness," Huxley said. He stood close enough for Isaiah to smell his cigarette smoke. "They're lucky we don't shoot them all." Isaiah wrapped a bandage around the third woman's hand. She whispered something in Japanese. He could not understand the words, but recognized the tone. Exhaustion sounded the same in every language. The sun climbed higher. Sweat ran down Isaiah's back beneath his uniform. He worked through the entire group. One by one he documented their injuries. Burns, cuts, infected blisters, malnutrition. War had touched them all. By noon, Huxley returned. He carried new orders on a clipboard. "You're staying overnight. Guard duty. Someone needs to watch them." He smiled, without warmth. "Consider it an honor." Isaiah saluted. The irony burned in his chest. He was trusted to guard prisoners, but not trusted to eat in the same mess hall as white soldiers. That was the Army's logic. The women sat in rows behind the wire fence. Isaiah took his position near the entrance. The day would be long. The midday heat pressed down. Isaiah stood in the narrow shade beside the medical tent. His canteen felt light. Water rationing affected everyone, but prisoners got less. 2 white guards leaned against the fence. They smoked and talked about home. Isaiah heard their voices, but not their words. He focused on the prisoners instead. The women sat on bare ground. No shelter protected them from the sun. Several fanned themselves with their hands. Others simply stared at nothing. Defeat lived in their postures. Isaiah walked to the supply station. He filled his arms with canteens. The supply sergeant barely looked at him. "That for the prisoners?" Isaiah nodded. The sergeant shrugged. "Don't give them too much." Isaiah carried the water back. He passed each canteen through the fence. The women took them with trembling hands. Most bowed slightly. He did not know if that meant gratitude or habit. A young woman caught his attention. She moved carefully around the left side of the enclosure. Her steps were deliberate and strange. She avoided something on the ground. Isaiah moved closer to the fence. His eyes followed her path. There, an old metal crate half buried in the dirt. Someone had pushed it aside during construction. Now it sat forgotten near where the women gathered. His stomach went cold. The crate could hide anything: grenades, ammunition, even a mine. The engineers had cleared this area, but war made men careless. Mistakes happened. Isaiah approached the nearest guard. "That crate needs checking," he said. He pointed through the fence. "Could be dangerous." The guard barely glanced over. "Area's cleared. Stop worrying." "Let me move it," Isaiah said. His voice stayed level. "Just to be safe." The second guard laughed. "You afraid of a box? It's garbage. Nothing more." Isaiah's jaw tightened. He could not force them to listen. He could only watch. The young woman with the careful steps had noticed something. Her instincts had kept her alive this long. He returned to his post. The crate sat there in the afternoon light. It looked harmless. Isaiah knew better than to trust appearances. War taught that lesson quickly. The guards changed shifts at 3. New men arrived. Isaiah tried again. "That crate should be moved," he told them. They ignored him. Isaiah watched the sun sink lower. Shadows grew longer across the enclosure. The women spoke quietly among themselves. Their voices created a soft background sound. He caught no words but heard the exhaustion underneath. Something felt wrong. Isaiah had learned to trust that feeling. The war had sharpened his instincts. He kept his eyes on the crate and waited. The late afternoon stretched into gold light. Isaiah remained at his post. The guards had moved to the far side of the enclosure. They talked about the baseball scores from last week's radio broadcast. Isaiah checked his watch. Nearly 4 hours until dark. Then the full night shift would begin. His feet already ached in his worn boots. One guard walked too close to the soft earth. Isaiah saw it happen in pieces. The guard's boot pressed down. The soil gave way. Then came the sound. The explosion tore through the air. Fire and dirt erupted from the ground. The blast threw the guard backward. Shrapnel flew in every direction. Women screamed. Isaiah moved without thinking. His body acted before his mind caught up. He ran toward the fence. Several women stood frozen in shock. Others ran in panic. He vaulted over the low section of wire. His hands grabbed the nearest woman. He pulled her down behind the sandbag stacked near the medical tent. Another woman stumbled toward the blast crater. Isaiah caught her arm and yanked her back. "Get down," he shouted. His voice cut through the screams. "Everyone down." He threw himself across 2 women who could not move. His body covered theirs. More debris rained from the sky. Small pieces of metal hit his back. His helmet absorbed one chunk. Another grazed his arm. The explosion's echo faded. Smoke filled the enclosure. Isaiah lifted his head. Dust covered everything. The guard who had triggered the mine lay motionless. Blood pooled beneath him. Isaiah dragged 3 more women behind cover. His hands moved automatically. Training took over. He counted bodies, checked for injuries, pulled people away from the crater's edge. Other soldiers arrived running. Medics pushed through the confusion. Isaiah helped carry wounded women to the medical tent. His arms burned from the effort. Sweat stung his eyes. The chaos slowly settled. The injured guard was loaded onto a stretcher. Several women needed treatment for cuts and burns. Isaiah worked alongside the other medics. No one told him to stop. 2 hours later, the smoke cleared. Isaiah stood near the fence. His uniform was filthy. Blood covered his hands from bandaging wounds. He had saved at least a dozen lives. The women gathered in small groups. They stared at him. Their expressions had changed. Fear had transformed into something else. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. Isaiah did not notice their looks. He cleaned his hands with water from his canteen. The day had become a nightmare. Tomorrow would bring questions and reports. He did not know that tonight would change everything. Dusk arrived with purple clouds. Isaiah finished treating the last injured woman. His medical supplies were nearly gone. Other medics had taken over. They worked by lamplight inside the tent. Isaiah stepped outside. The air felt cooler now. His body ached from the day's violence. He needed to sit down. Rest seemed impossible but necessary. The Japanese women had gathered, near the eastern fence. They spoke in low voices. Occasionally one would glance toward Isaiah. He tried not to notice. Attention made him uncomfortable. An elderly woman separated from the group. She walked slowly toward him. Her gray hair was pulled back. Her face held many wrinkles. Age had bent her spine but not broken her spirit. Isaiah straightened. He did not know what she wanted. The woman stopped 3 feet away. She bowed deeply. Then she spoke in careful English. "You saved life," she said. Her accent was thick, but her meaning clear. "When others run away, you run toward." Isaiah shook his head. "Just doing my duty, ma'am." The woman smiled. It was a sad smile. "If America does not see your worth," she said, "we do." She raised her voice. The other women turned to listen. "We all will marry you." The words hung in the air. Isaiah blinked. He must have heard wrong. The woman repeated herself. This time several others echoed her words. They formed a circle around him. "Wait," Isaiah said. Panic touched his chest. You don't have to." "Not romance," the woman explained. Her eyes were serious. "Honor. Protection. You protected us. We protect you now." More women joined the circle. They stood between Isaiah and the rest of the camp. Their meaning became clear. This was ritual, symbolic, a way to acknowledge what he had done when his own army would not. A younger woman stepped forward. She limped slightly. Her leg was bandaged. "My name Aiko," she said. "Teacher, before war." She gestured to the others. "We speak true. You are good man." Isaiah's throat went tight. No one had called him a good man in this uniform. The segregated army had many names for him. None were good. "Thank you," he managed. His voice came out rough. "But this could cause trouble, for all of us." The elderly woman nodded. "We know trouble. We survive." She touched his arm briefly. "Remember this. When they tell you lies." The women dispersed slowly. They returned to their sleeping areas. Isaiah stood alone in the growing darkness. His heart pounded against his ribs. Voices carried from the officers' area. Isaiah turned. Captain Huxley stood 50 yards away. Even in the dim light, Isaiah could see his expression. Fury lived there. Huxley had heard everything. Isaiah's blood went cold. He had just become a problem. Problems in the segregated army disappeared quickly. The night settled around him. Isaiah knew tomorrow would bring consequences. He walked toward his barracks with heavy steps. The night wrapped around Isaiah. He entered his barracks and closed the door. Darkness filled the space. He did not turn on the lamp. His bunk sat in the corner. He collapsed onto it. The thin mattress felt better than standing. Every muscle in his body complained. The day's violence had taken its toll. Isaiah stared at the ceiling. He could not see it, but knew every crack. 7 months in this barracks. 7 months of segregation and silence. The other black soldiers slept in bunks nearby. Their breathing created a steady rhythm. The door opened. Light spilled in briefly. Private Larkin entered. He was young and white, and one of the few soldiers who spoke to Isaiah directly. "Miles," Larkin whispered. He sat on the footlocker. "You need to know something." Isaiah sat up. "What?" "The officers are talking," Larkin said. His voice stayed low. "About you and those prisoners, about what happened today." He paused. "What they're saying isn't good." Isaiah's stomach tightened. "What are they saying?" "That you're too friendly with them, that you showed inappropriate attachment." Larkin shook his head. "Huxley's spreading it around. Says you were letting them touch you. Says it looked wrong." The words hit Isaiah hard. He had saved lives. Now that act was being twisted into something dirty, something criminal. The Army's racism could turn heroism into scandal. "I was helping injured people," Isaiah said. His voice came out flat. "That's all." "I know," Larkin replied, "but Huxley doesn't care about truth. He cares about keeping you in your place." He stood. "Just watch yourself. They're looking for reasons." Larkin left. Darkness returned. Isaiah lay back down. Sleep would not come easily tonight. Outside, a radio broadcast echoed across the camp. The announcer praised American victories. He spoke about freedom and justice. The words sounded hollow. Isaiah had learned that lesson early. Freedom was not for everyone. Justice picked its favorites. He thought about the women's vow, their strange proclamation of marriage. It had been symbolic, a cultural gesture of gratitude. But white officers would see only scandal. They would see a black man receiving honor from enemy prisoners. That was unforgivable. Isaiah closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would maintain distance. He would keep his head down. He would do his job and nothing more. Survival meant invisibility. But even as he made these promises, he knew they were impossible. The women needed medical care. He was assigned to provide it. Proximity was unavoidable. Huxley would find his reasons regardless. The blackout lights flickered through the window. Isaiah pulled his blanket higher. 7 months left on his deployment. 7 months of walking this impossible line. He had survived worse. He would survive this. The night stretched on. Isaiah waited for sleep that would not arrive. Morning arrived cold and gray. Isaiah washed his face with water from the basin. His reflection looked tired. Dark circles lived under his eyes. One night of worry had aged him. He dressed carefully. Every button mattered. Every crease had to be perfect. Black soldiers learned early that appearance could mean survival. Any excuse would do for punishment. Isaiah grabbed his medical kit. The supplies inside were dangerously low. He needed to requisition more, but that meant dealing with the supply office. That meant navigating white soldiers who saw him as less than human. He walked across the camp. Morning mist hung over everything. Other soldiers moved through their routines. Most ignored Isaiah. That was normal. Segregation created invisible walls. The POW enclosure appeared ahead. Isaiah's pace slowed. He saw the women sitting in groups. They looked cold. No blankets had been provided. The morning chill bit through their thin clothing. Isaiah approached the gate. The guard on duty barely glanced at him. "Bringing rations?" "Medical check," Isaiah replied. He showed his kit. The guard waved him through. Isaiah entered the enclosure. Several women stood when they saw him. Others remained seated. Aiko was among those standing. She favored her left leg. The infection was worsening. Isaiah knelt beside her. "Let me see," he said. She understood his gesture, if not his words. She lifted her pant leg. The bandage was soaked through. He cleaned the wound carefully. The infection had spread. She needed proper antibiotics. Isaiah had only basic sulfa powder. He applied what he had and wrapped fresh bandages around her leg. "Thank you," Aiko said. Her English was limited but sincere. Isaiah nodded. He moved to check other injuries. The elderly woman from last night watched him. Her expression held approval. That made him more nervous. Boots crunched on gravel. Isaiah looked up. Captain Huxley stood at the fence. His arms were crossed. His face showed cold anger. "Miles," Huxley called. His voice cut across the morning air. "Step out here." Isaiah stood. He walked to the gate. His heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. Years of practice made that possible. "What do you think you're doing?" Huxley asked. His eyes were hard. "Soliciting affection from enemy prisoners?" "Sir, I'm providing medical care," Isaiah said. He kept his voice steady. "Following orders." "Following orders," Huxley repeated. He laughed without humor. "I saw how they looked at you. I heard what they said last night." He stepped closer. "You're enjoying this, being their hero." Before Isaiah could respond, the women moved. They stood between Isaiah and Huxley, not aggressively, just present. Their message was clear. They would not let him be harmed. Huxley's face turned red. "Get back," he shouted at the women. They did not move. They did not understand his words, but understood his tone. They remained firm. "Sir," Isaiah said. His voice stayed level despite his fear. "They're just confused. Let me calm them down." "You've done enough," Huxley snapped. He pointed at Isaiah. "You're one misstep from punishment, boy. One wrong move and I'll see you in chains." He turned and walked away. His boots struck the ground hard. The women slowly dispersed. Iko touched Isaiah's arm briefly, a gesture of support. Then she joined the others. Isaiah left the enclosure. His hands shook slightly. He forced them steady. The morning had confirmed his fears. Huxley was building a case. Every interaction would be twisted. Every kindness would become evidence. He walked toward the supply tent. Work continued regardless of danger. Lives still needed saving. The afternoon sun beat down. Isaiah stood outside the supply tent. He had been waiting 30 minutes. The supply clerks took their time. Black soldiers always waited longer. Finally, a corporal appeared. He looked annoyed. "What do you need?" "Medical supplies," Isaiah said. He handed over his requisition form. "Bandages, sulfa powder, quinine if possible." The corporal glanced at the form. "For those Jap prisoners?" "For injured personnel," Isaiah replied. He kept his tone neutral. "Following medical protocol?" The corporal disappeared inside. Isaiah heard voices, laughter. He recognized the sound. They were mocking him. Standard procedure. 5 minutes passed. The corporal returned empty-handed. "Can't help you," he said. His smile was thin. "Rations are tight. Prioritize American wounded." "These women are POWs under our care," Isaiah said. His jaw tightened. "They're our responsibility." "Your responsibility, maybe," the corporal replied. He leaned against the tent frame. "Not mine. Request denied." Isaiah knew arguing was pointless. The system worked against him at every level. He nodded and turned away. His mind was already planning alternatives. Behind the supply tent sat piles of discarded equipment. Isaiah walked past slowly. His eyes scanned the debris. Sometimes useful items got thrown out by mistake. Waste was common in war. He spotted a canvas bag. It held old bandages. Not sterile, but better than nothing. He could boil them clean. Isaiah glanced around. No one watched. He picked up the bag quickly. Further down he found a half-empty bottle of iodine. The label was faded, but readable. Isaiah slipped it into his pocket. Small acts of theft. Necessary crimes. His conscience barely registered them anymore. He walked away from the supply area. Each step felt dangerous. Getting caught meant severe punishment. but letting women die from preventable infections felt worse. Isaiah had made his choice. The medical tent appeared ahead. He would hide his acquisitions there. Other medics might not notice, or they might look away. The unspoken rules of survival applied to everyone. Isaiah entered the tent. The familiar smell of antiseptic filled his nose. He placed the canvas bag under his workspace. The iodine went into his personal kit. His movements were quick and practiced. Footsteps approached. Isaiah straightened. A sergeant appeared at the tent entrance. "Miles, report to Colonel Whitford at 1600 hours." Isaiah's stomach dropped. "Yes, sir. What's this regarding?" "Inspection," the sergeant said. His face gave nothing away. "POW facilities." He left without further explanation. Isaiah checked his watch. 1 hour. He had 1 hour before facing senior command. This could mean anything: commendation or condemnation, hope or disaster. He organized his medical supplies. Busy hands kept fear at bay. The hour would pass quickly. Isaiah prepared for the worst. 1600 hours arrived too fast. Isaiah stood outside the administrative tent. His uniform was pressed. His boots were shined. Appearance might save him. It had before. Colonel Whitford emerged. He was older than most officers. Gray touched his temples. His face held the weariness of long service. Behind him came Captain Huxley. His expression promised trouble. "Corporal Miles?" Whitford said. His voice was neutral. "Walk with me." They moved toward the POW enclosure. Isaiah fell into step beside the colonel. Huxley followed behind. Isaiah could feel his stare burning into his back. "I've heard reports," Whitford began. He kept his eyes forward. "About the explosion yesterday, about your actions." Isaiah's throat went dry. "Yes, sir." "You saved several lives," Whitford continued, "including prisoners. That's commendable." He paused. "I also heard other reports about inappropriate conduct." They reached the enclosure. The women were gathered for afternoon roll call. They stood in neat rows. When they saw Isaiah, several smiled. Others bowed slightly. Whitford noticed. His eyebrows raised. "They seem grateful," he observed. "They're confused, sir," Huxley interjected. His voice was sharp. "Miles has been cultivating inappropriate relationships. It's unbecoming." Whitford raised his hand. "I'll make my own assessment, Captain." He turned to Isaiah. "Show me your medical work." Isaiah entered the enclosure. Whitford followed. Huxley remained outside. His face was red with barely controlled anger. Isaiah approached Aiko. Her leg needed checking. He knelt and carefully removed her bandage. The wound was cleaner. The infection had stopped spreading. His stolen supplies had worked. Whitford watched closely. He saw Isaiah's gentle movements. He saw how the women trusted him. He saw clean bandages and proper care despite limited resources. "Where did you get these supplies?" Whitford asked. His tone was curious, not accusatory. "Made do with what was available, sir," Isaiah replied. A careful truth, not quite a lie. Whitford nodded. He walked through the enclosure. He checked other wounded women. All showed signs of improving health. The conditions were still poor, but the medical care was excellent. They returned to the gate. Whitford stood silent for a moment. Isaiah waited. His future hung in the balance. "Corporal Miles," Whitford said finally, "your conduct has been exemplary. Despite limited resources, you've maintained high standards of care." He looked at Huxley. "I see no evidence of misconduct." Huxley's jaw clenched. "Sir, the prisoner testimonies—" "Show gratitude," Whitford interrupted. "Not conspiracy." He turned back to Isaiah. "You're commended for your service. I'll note it in my report." Relief flooded through Isaiah. "Thank you, sir." Whitford left. Huxley remained behind. He stepped close to Isaiah. His voice dropped to a whisper. "This isn't over. One mistake, that's all I need." He walked away. Isaiah stood alone at the fence. The women watched him. Iko smiled. For the first time in days, Isaiah felt hope. The sun began its descent. Evening approached. Isaiah returned to his duties. The battle was not won, but today he had survived. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. He would face them when they came. Morning arrived with the smell of coffee and burnt toast. Isaiah stood in the mess line with other black soldiers. The segregated breakfast routine never changed. They ate after white soldiers finished. Voices carried from nearby tables. Isaiah tried not to listen. He focused on his tray. Powdered eggs and stale bread. The same meal every morning. His stomach had stopped complaining months ago. "That's him," someone said. The voice was not quiet. "The hero the enemy wants to bed." Laughter erupted. Isaiah's grip tightened on his tray. He did not turn around. Looking would only encourage them. "Heard they all want to marry him," another voice added. More laughter followed. "Maybe he's into that. Maybe that's why he treats them so nice." The words were designed to wound. They succeeded. Isaiah's chest burned with anger he could not show. He collected his food and sat at the far table, away from everyone. Private Larkin joined him minutes later. He was one of the few white soldiers who would. "Ignore them," Larkin said quietly. "They're idiots." "Hard to ignore," Isaiah replied. He pushed eggs around his plate. His appetite had vanished. "Huxley's been talking," Larkin continued. He kept his voice low. "Spreading rumors all over camp. Says you're getting special treatment from the prisoners. Says it's unnatural." Isaiah set down his fork. "I'm doing my job. Nothing more." "I know that," Larkin said, "but they don't care about truth. They care about keeping things the way they've always been." He glanced around. "You make them uncomfortable. A black man getting respect from anyone? That threatens them." Before Isaiah could respond, a runner appeared. The young soldier looked nervous. "Corporal Miles, you're wanted at the administrative tent, immediately." Isaiah's stomach dropped. He stood slowly. His legs felt unsteady. Larkin's expression showed concern, but he said nothing. Some battles had to be fought alone. Isaiah walked across the camp. Other soldiers watched him pass. Some smirked, others just stared. He felt their eyes tracking his movement. Judgment followed him everywhere. The administrative tent loomed ahead. Captain Huxley stood outside. His smile was cruel. Victory already lived in his expression. Isaiah stopped 3 feet away. He saluted. "Sir, reporting as ordered." "Inside," Huxley said. His voice held satisfaction. "We need to discuss your conduct." Isaiah entered the tent. 2 clerks sat at desks. They did not look at him. Their faces showed practiced neutrality. They had seen this before. Black soldiers being called to account. The outcome was always predetermined. Huxley closed the tent flap. The space suddenly felt smaller, darker. Isaiah's heart pounded, but his face remained calm. Years of survival had taught him that mask. The morning had taken a terrible turn. Isaiah braced himself for what would come next. Huxley moved behind the desk. He picked up a folder. Papers rustled inside. The sound filled the quiet tent. Isaiah remained standing at attention. No one had told him to relax. "Corporal Miles?" Huxley began. His voice was formal now, official. "We've received complaints about your conduct with enemy prisoners." He opened the folder. "Multiple witnesses report inappropriate behavior." Isaiah's jaw tightened. "Sir, I've only provided medical care, according to regulations." "Regulations," Huxley repeated. He pulled out a sheet of paper. This report states you spent excessive time alone with female prisoners, that you accepted gifts from them, that you encouraged their attachment. That's not true, Isaiah said. His voice stayed steady. I've followed protocol exactly. Huxley smiled. Are you calling these witnesses liars? The trap closed around Isaiah. If he agreed the witnesses lied, then he called white soldiers liars. That was insubordination. If he stayed silent, he accepted guilt. Either path led to punishment. Sir, I'm saying there's been a misunderstanding, Isaiah replied carefully. Any interaction with prisoners was strictly medical. Nothing inappropriate occurred. One clerk began writing. His pen scratched across paper. Every word was being recorded. This was not an informal conversation. This was building an official case. Huxley leaned forward. The prisoners themselves made statements. They expressed romantic interest. They claimed they would marry you. He paused. That happened, didn't it? They expressed gratitude after I saved their lives, Isaiah said. It was symbolic, a cultural gesture, nothing romantic. That's not how it looked, Huxley replied. Multiple officers witnessed it. They all reported the same thing. Prisoners showing excessive affection. You accepting it, maybe even encouraging it. Isaiah's hands clenched behind his back. His nails dug into his palms. Pain helped him focus. I did not encourage anything inappropriate, sir. Huxley closed the folder. An investigation will begin today. You're confined to camp. No contact with prisoners unless directly supervised. He stood. The military takes these matters seriously. Fraternization with enemy combatants is a court-martial offense. The words hit Isaiah hard. Court-martial meant prison. It meant dishonorable discharge. It meant his entire service record destroyed. Everything he had endured would be erased, replaced with shame. Sir, this is wrong, Isaiah said. His voice came out stronger than he felt. I saved those women's lives. I provided medical care, that's all. That's for the investigation to determine, Huxley replied. His smile returned. Dismissed. Isaiah saluted. He turned and left the tent. The morning sun felt too bright. His eyes adjusted slowly. Other soldiers moved around the camp. None looked at him. Word had already spread. He was contaminated now. Accused. He walked toward his barracks. Each step felt heavy. His future had just collapsed. The army he had served with loyalty and courage had turned against him, because he showed compassion, because prisoners respected him, because he was black and respect from anyone threatened the established order. Isaiah reached his barracks and sat on his bunk. The thin mattress sagged under his weight. He stared at the wall. The cracks seemed deeper today, more permanent. Hopelessness crept into his chest. He pushed it away. He had survived worse. He would survive this. He had to believe that. Noon arrived too quickly. Isaiah had spent the morning in his barracks, thinking, planning, finding no answers. The walls offered no solutions, only silence. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Private Larkin entered. His face showed concern. They're questioning the prisoners, he said, interrogating them about you. Isaiah stood quickly. When? Now, Larkin replied. Huxley's got interpreters. They're going through them one by one. He paused. Miles, this is bad. They're going to twist whatever the women say. Isaiah's chest tightened. The women were vulnerable, powerless, under threat of starvation or worse. They would be forced to say whatever Huxley wanted. Truth meant nothing in military interrogations. I need to warn them, Isaiah said. He moved toward the door. Larkin blocked his path. You're confined to camp. If you go near them now, it proves guilt. They'll say you were tampering with witnesses. Isaiah stopped. Larkin was right. Every move he made would be used against him. The trap had been set perfectly. He could only wait and hope the women understood the danger. Can you get a message to them? Isaiah asked. Through someone else? Larkin shook his head. Too risky. Everyone's watching. Anyone helping you becomes a target, too. He put his hand on Isaiah's shoulder. I'm sorry. There's nothing we can do right now. Isaiah sat back down. Helplessness washed over him. The feeling was worse than fear. He had faced death in combat. He had treated dying men under fire. But this was different. This was systematic destruction, legal murder of his character. The afternoon dragged on. Isaiah heard voices outside, soldiers talking, laughing. Life continued normally for everyone else. For him, time had stopped. His entire existence waited on the outcome of interrogations he could not witness or control. He thought about the women, Aiko with her injured leg, Hana, the elderly midwife who had spoken the vow, the nurses who had survived so much already. Now they faced more trauma, questions designed to trap them, words twisted into weapons. What could they say? If they praised him, they confirmed inappropriate attachment. If they denied, everything they called white officers liars. If they stayed silent, they appeared guilty. The women faced the same impossible choices Isaiah did, victims of a system designed to punish humanity. Evening approached. Isaiah's barracks grew darker. He did not light the lamp. Darkness felt appropriate. His future looked equally dim. Footsteps approached outside. Isaiah tensed. The door opened. A sergeant appeared. Miles, you're wanted at the POW enclosure. Supervised visit only. Isaiah stood. His legs felt weak, but he forced them steady. This was it. He would face the women after their interrogations. He would see the damage in their eyes, the fear Huxley had planted there. He followed the sergeant across camp. The walk felt longer than usual. Each step brought him closer to confirmation of his worst fears. The women would have been threatened, broken, forced to betray him to save themselves. Isaiah could not blame them. He understood survival. He had made compromises, too. Everyone did in war. The question was, what compromises broke you permanently? What betrayals destroyed the person you had been? The enclosure appeared ahead. The women were gathered near the fence. They looked exhausted. Several had been crying. Isaiah's heart sank. The interrogations had been brutal. The sergeant stopped at the gate. 5 minutes, he said. His voice was not unkind, just tired. Stay where I can see you. Isaiah entered the enclosure. The women turned toward him. Their expressions were difficult to read. Fear mixed with something else. Determination, maybe, or defiance. He could not tell. Aiko stepped forward. Her limp was more pronounced. The interrogation had forced her to stand for hours. Her leg had suffered. She stopped 3 feet from Isaiah, close enough to speak quietly. They ask many questions, she said. Her English was careful. About you, about us. She glanced at the other women. They want us to say bad things. Isaiah's throat tightened. What did you tell them? Truth, Aiko replied. You help us. You save life. Nothing bad. She paused. They not happy with truth. Another woman approached. She was younger, maybe 19. Her hands shook as she spoke in Japanese. Aiko translated. They say we get no food if we not say what they want. They say you hurt us. We must confirm. Isaiah's fists clenched. Starvation as a weapon. Standard military tactics. Break the prisoners. Force false confessions. The system was efficient and cruel. You should tell them what they want to hear, Isaiah said. The words hurt coming out. Protect yourselves. I understand. Hana pushed through the group. The elderly midwife looked furious. She spoke in rapid Japanese. Her hands gestured sharply. Aiko translated again. She says, no, we do not lie. We saw your heart. We will not betray that. They'll punish you, Isaiah warned. His voice cracked. They'll make you suffer. We already suffer, Aiko said simply. We survive war. We survive bombs. We survive this. She met his eyes. You protect us. Now we protect you. The sergeant called out. Time's up, Miles. Isaiah wanted to argue, to convince them that saving him was not worth their pain, but the women's faces showed resolution. They had made their choice. He had to respect that. Thank you, he said quietly. The words felt inadequate, insufficient, but they were all he had. He turned and left the enclosure. The sergeant locked the gate behind them. They walked back toward the administrative area. Isaiah's mind raced. The women had refused to lie. That meant the investigation would continue. Huxley would apply more pressure. The situation would escalate. They reached the sergeant's station. Go back to your barracks, the sergeant said. Stay there until called. Isaiah obeyed. He walked alone through the evening camp. Other soldiers were gathering for dinner. The smell of cooked food drifted on the air. Isaiah had no appetite. His stomach churned with anxiety. His barracks appeared empty. The other soldiers were eating. Isaiah sat on his bunk and put his head in his hands. The women's courage humbled him. They faced starvation to defend his honor. That burden felt heavier than any accusation. Outside the sun set. Orange light filtered through the window. Isaiah watched the colors fade. Night approached quickly. Tomorrow would bring new interrogations. More pressure. The army had patience. It would break the women eventually. Everyone broke under enough pressure. Isaiah lay back on his bunk. Sleep seemed impossible, but he needed rest. The battle ahead would require all his strength. He closed his eyes and waited for darkness to claim him. Night brought no relief. Isaiah tossed on his bunk. Sleep refused to come. His mind replayed the day's events endlessly. Each memory felt worse than the last. The door opened quietly. Isaiah sat up. Private Larkin slipped inside. He carried something wrapped in cloth. His face looked serious in the dim light from outside. Can't sleep either? Larkin asked. He sat on the footlocker. Brought you something. He unwrapped the cloth. Bread and cheese. Figured you missed dinner. Isaiah was not hungry, but he accepted the food. Kindness deserved acknowledgement. Thanks. Don't thank me yet, Larkin said. His voice dropped lower. I heard things. Bad things. He paused. Huxley's pushing for a fast-tracked court-martial. Wants to make an example of you. Isaiah's hand stopped midway to his mouth. The bread suddenly felt heavy. How fast? Days. Maybe a week. Larkin shook his head. He's got support from other officers. They want this over quickly. Quietly. Before it becomes a bigger problem. What kind of problem? Isaiah asked, though he already knew the answer. The prisoners refusing to cooperate makes everyone look bad. If this story spreads, it shows the army threatening POWs, starving them to get false testimony. Larkin leaned forward. That's a scandal. So they need to convict. You fast. Make the problem disappear. Isaiah set the food aside. His appetite had vanished completely. Once the charges are official, truth won't matter. No, Larkin agreed. It won't. The verdict's already decided. They just need the paperwork. He stood. I wish I could help more, but I'm already taking a risk talking to you. I know, Isaiah said. I appreciate it. Larkin moved toward the door. He stopped and looked back. For what it's worth, I think you're a good man. Better than most. He left before Isaiah could respond. Silence returned. Isaiah stared at the bread. Larkin's words echoed in his mind. Days, maybe a week. His entire future would be destroyed in less time than it took to recover from a cold. He thought about running, deserting. The island was not that large, but hiding places existed. He could disappear into the civilian areas, maybe survive until the war ended, maybe make it home somehow. But running would confirm guilt. It would doom the women who defended him. Their testimony would become worthless. They would have suffered for nothing. Isaiah could not do that to them. He would face this head-on, even if facing it meant destruction. Thunder rumbled outside. A storm was building. Rain began hitting the roof. The sound created a steady rhythm. Nature did not care about human problems. Storms came regardless of personal crises. Isaiah lay back down. The rain grew heavier. Water drummed against the barracks walls. He closed his eyes and tried to find peace. Sleep finally came near midnight. His dreams were dark and troubled, full of courtrooms and accusations, full of faces twisted with hatred. He woke before dawn. The rain had stopped. Puddles reflected the early light. Isaiah rose and dressed. Today would bring new challenges. He prepared himself mentally. The battle was not over. He would fight as long as possible. Morning rain had left everything damp. Isaiah walked across camp towards the POW enclosure. The mud sucked at his boots. Each step required effort. The ground had become treacherous overnight. His orders were simple. Resume medical duties under supervision. 2 guards would watch his every move. Document everything. Look for evidence of misconduct. The army was building its case carefully. Isaiah reached the enclosure. The guards were already there. They nodded but said nothing. Their faces showed no hostility, just duty. They were following orders, too. The women emerged from their shelter. They looked worse than yesterday. Hunger had sharpened their features. The threatened food reduction had been implemented. Punishment for refusing to lie. Isaiah's anger flared, but he controlled it. Emotion would not help. He focused on his medical kit. Supplies were dangerously low again. He would have to make do with almost nothing. Aiko approached slowly. Her limp was severe now. She had been standing too long during interrogations. The infection was returning. Isaiah could see pain in her eyes. "Sit down," he said. He gestured to a wooden crate. Aiko obeyed. She lifted her pant leg. The bandage was dirty. Blood had soaked through. Isaiah knelt in the mud. He did not care about his uniform. Clean clothes meant nothing compared to preventing gangrene. He unwrapped the bandage carefully. The wound looked worse. Red streaks spread from the original injury. Classic signs of infection. He had no fresh antibiotics. The supply office had denied his requests. Isaiah used what remained in his kit. Old sulfa powder that might have lost potency. Boiled bandages that were clean but not sterile. Desperation medicine. Aiko watched his face. She understood the situation without words. Her expression showed gratitude mixed with resignation. They were both trapped in circumstances beyond their control. "You should have lied," Isaiah said quietly. The guards were 10 feet away, close enough to watch but too far to hear. "You're suffering because of me." Aiko shook her head. "We suffer because of war, because of hate." She paused, searching for English words. "You show different way. We honor that. Worth hunger." Isaiah finished wrapping her leg. His hands moved automatically. Years of medical training guided him. But his heart ached. These women were starving for his dignity. That burden felt unbearable. Other women approached for treatment, minor injuries mostly. Cuts that were healing slowly due to malnutrition. Bruises from sleeping on hard ground. The accumulated damage of war and imprisonment. Isaiah worked through them all. The guards watched and took notes, writing down his every action, searching for evidence that did not exist. Isaiah maintained professional distance, no unnecessary conversation, no gestures that could be misinterpreted. An hour passed. The medical check was complete. Isaiah packed his kit. He stood to leave. Aiko caught his attention. She held out her hand. In her palm lay a small piece of paper, folded tightly. Isaiah glanced at the guards. They were talking to each other, distracted momentarily. He took the paper quickly, slipped it into his pocket. The exchange lasted seconds. Aiko's face revealed nothing. Isaiah left the enclosure. His heart pounded. Taking anything from a prisoner was dangerous. If discovered, it would confirm Huxley's accusations. But curiosity burned in his chest. What message could Aiko risk passing him? He walked behind the medical tent, made sure no one watched, unfolded the paper carefully. Inside was a simple sketch, done in charcoal or ash. It showed him shielding the women from the explosion, his body covering theirs, protecting life while chaos erupted around them. Below the image, Aiko had written in careful English, "Remember truth when they tell lies." Isaiah's throat tightened. He refolded the paper, hid it deep in his pocket. This evidence of his humanity would have to remain secret. In a world determined to deny his worth, this simple drawing meant everything. Afternoon heat pressed. Down, despite the morning's rain. Isaiah had been summoned to the command tent. He walked slowly. Each step brought him closer to judgment. His stomach felt hollow. Fear and anticipation mixed in his chest. Colonel Whitford stood outside the tent. His expression was unreadable, neither hostile nor friendly, just official. Isaiah saluted. Whitford returned the gesture. "Inside," Whitford said. His voice held no emotion. That worried Isaiah more than anger would have. Anger could be appealed to. Emptiness could not. Isaiah entered. Captain Huxley stood beside a table covered in papers. His smile was predatory. He had been waiting for this moment. Anticipation radiated from him. "Corporal Miles," Whitford began. He remained standing. No one invited Isaiah to sit. "I've reviewed your service record. Exemplary until recently." "Thank you, sir," Isaiah replied. He kept his voice steady. "However," Whitford continued, "serious allegations have been raised. Allegations I cannot ignore." He picked up a paper. "Multiple witnesses report inappropriate conduct with enemy prisoners." Isaiah's jaw tightened. "Sir, I've done nothing inappropriate. I've provided medical care according to regulations." Huxley stepped forward. "May I, sir?" Whitford nodded. Huxley pulled several sheets from the pile. "We have documented statements. Guards witnessed extended conversations, physical contact, accepting gifts." He looked directly at Isaiah. "The prisoners themselves expressed romantic interest. You did not discourage it." "They expressed gratitude," Isaiah countered. "Cultural differences were misinterpreted. I maintained professional boundaries at all times." "Professional boundaries," Huxley repeated. His voice dripped with sarcasm. "Is that what you call spending hours alone with female prisoners, smuggling extra rations, accepting secret notes?" Isaiah's blood ran cold. They knew about the note. Someone had seen the exchange, or searched his belongings. Either way, the evidence existed now. "Sir," Isaiah said, addressing Whitford, "any note was likely medical information. The prisoners sometimes communicate symptoms through writing when language fails." "Show us the note," Huxley demanded. His eyes gleamed with triumph. "If it's medical as you claim, show us now." Isaiah reached into his pocket. His fingers touched the folded paper. Aiko's drawing, her message of truth and dignity. If he revealed it, they would twist its meaning. They would call it proof of romantic attachment. The charcoal sketch of him protecting them would become evidence of obsession. "I must have misplaced it," Isaiah said. The lie tasted bitter. "Perhaps it fell out during rounds." Huxley laughed. "Convenient." He turned to Whitford. Sir, he's clearly hiding something. This confirms the accusations. Whitford's face hardened. Isaiah watched hope slip away. The colonel had wanted to believe in his innocence, had praised his work, but accumulated evidence was overwhelming. Truth did not matter, only what could be proven, and everything provable had been corrupted. "Corporal Miles," Whitford said. His voice carried disappointment. "I'm scheduling a formal tribunal, tomorrow at 1000 hours. He paused. "You're confined to barracks until then. Guards will escort you." "Sir," Isaiah tried one more time. "These accusations are false. I've served honorably. I've saved lives. I don't deserve this." "The tribunal will determine what you deserve," Whitford replied. He gestured to the guards outside. "Take him." 2 soldiers entered. They flanked Isaiah. He was not in chains, but might as well have been. They led him from the tent into blinding sunlight. Other soldiers stopped to watch. Whispers followed his march across camp. Isaiah kept his head up. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him broken. Not yet. Not until the verdict came down. He still had dignity. They could not take that unless he surrendered it. The guards delivered him to his barracks. "Stay inside," one said. "We'll be posted outside." Isaiah entered. The door closed behind him. He was alone. Trapped. His future would be decided tomorrow by men who had already made up their minds. Justice had left this camp long ago. Only procedure remained. The forms had to be filled. The paperwork completed. Then they could destroy him legally. He sat on his bunk, pulled out Aiko's drawing, studied it in the afternoon light. This was truth. Him protecting life, showing compassion, being human. Everything the army denied was possible for a black man. Tomorrow they would try to erase this truth, but Isaiah would carry it forward. No matter what happened, no verdict could change what he knew about himself. Night fell slowly. Isaiah sat in darkness. He had not lit the lamp. Shadows felt appropriate. His thoughts moved in circles, searching for solutions that did not exist. The door opened quietly. Isaiah tensed. Private Larkin slipped inside. He carried a canteen. His movements were cautious. The guards outside must have stepped away briefly. "Drink," Larkin said. He handed over the canteen. "It's not much, but it'll help." Isaiah took it. Water mixed with something stronger. Whiskey, maybe. He drank anyway. The burn felt good. Proof he still felt something. "Tomorrow's the tribunal," Larkin said. He sat on the footlocker. "Everyone knows. The whole camp's talking." He paused. "Most think you're guilty." "I know," Isaiah replied. The whiskey had loosened his tongue slightly. "Doesn't matter what I am. Matters what they need me to be." "A warning," Larkin said. "That's what you are. A message to other black soldiers. Stay in your place. Don't reach above your station." He shook his head. "It's wrong. All of it." "Wrong doesn't change anything," Isaiah said. His voice came out flat. Exhaustion had finally broken through his defenses. "System's designed this way. We're just playing our parts." Larkin stood. "The prisoners are being brought to testify. All of them. Huxley wants a show. Make sure everyone sees what happens when you step out of line." Isaiah's chest tightened. The women would be paraded in front of the tribunal. Forced to speak. Their words would be twisted regardless of what they said. This was theater. Public execution of his character. "Will they hurt them?" Isaiah asked. The question hurt to voice. "Not physically," Larkin replied, "but they'll threaten, intimidate, make them understand the cost of defending you." He moved toward the door. "I'm sorry, Miles. I wish it was different." "Me too," Isaiah said. Larkin left. Darkness returned. Isaiah lay on his bunk and stared at nothing. Tomorrow would bring the end. One way or another, his time in this camp was finished, either in chains or disgraced. Either way, his service meant nothing. Years of dedication erased by accusations that were lies. He thought about his family, his mother in Mississippi. She would hear about the court-martial eventually. The shame would kill her. Her son accused of dishonoring the uniform. She would never know the truth. Only the official story, the one designed to break him. Sleep came in fragments. Isaiah drifted in and out of consciousness. His dreams were fractured, images of the explosion, Iko's smile, Huxley's cruel face, the women kneeling, all mixed together in confused sequences that made no sense. Dawn arrived gray and cold. Isaiah woke with stiff muscles. His body ached from tension. He washed his face, dressed in his cleanest uniform. If this was his last day of official service, he would face it properly. The guards opened his door at 9. "Time," one said. They escorted him across camp. Other soldiers watched his passage. Some looked away. Others stared openly. Isaiah kept his eyes forward. He would not give them anything to remember except his dignity. The tribunal area appeared ahead. A large tent. Tables arranged formally. Officers already seated. This was real. This was happening. Isaiah's heart pounded, but his steps remained steady. He walked toward judgment with his head high. The tribunal tent held 20 rows of benches. Officers filled the front seats. Enlisted men stood in back. Everyone wanted to witness this. Isaiah was escorted to a small table facing the panel of judges. 3 colonels sat in judgment. Whitford was the center one. Captain Huxley sat at the prosecutor's table. His uniform was pristine. Every button gleamed. He looked confident, prepared. This was his moment of victory. Isaiah sat alone. No defense counsel had been provided. Black soldiers rarely received such courtesy. He would face this tribunal without representation, without anyone speaking on his behalf. "This hearing will come to order," Whitford announced. His voice carried across the tent. "Corporal Isaiah Miles stands accused of fraternization with enemy prisoners, conduct unbecoming a soldier, and moral misconduct while on duty." The charges hung in the air. Each word felt heavy. Isaiah's chest tightened, but his face remained calm. He had practiced this expression for years. Show nothing. Feel everything inside. Propaganda posters lined the tent walls. They showed American soldiers as noble heroes, defenders of freedom and justice. The irony was not lost on Isaiah. He had defended. He had shown justice. Now he faced destruction for it. "Captain Huxley," Whitford continued, "present your case." Huxley stood. He moved with theatrical precision. "Gentlemen, this case is straightforward. Corporal Miles violated every standard of military conduct. He formed inappropriate attachments with enemy prisoners. He accepted romantic overtures. He compromised his position and brought shame to this unit." Isaiah's jaw clenched. Every word was a calculated lie, but delivered with such confidence that truth seemed impossible. "We have multiple witnesses," Huxley said. "Guards who observed his behavior, officers who documented violations, and most damning, we have the prisoners themselves. Their own words will confirm what Miles cannot deny." A murmur ran through the crowd. This was the promise of spectacle. The prisoners would be brought forward, made to testify. Everyone wanted to see it. "Additionally," Huxley continued, "Miles smuggled supplies to prisoners. He showed favoritism. He spent hours alone with them, all violations of standing orders." He paused for effect. This soldier forgot his duty, forgot his place, forgot that these women are enemies of America. Isaiah wanted to stand, to shout the truth. But silence was his only defense. Any outburst would confirm their narrative. The angry black man, unable to control himself. He stayed seated, stone-faced. "Call your first witness," Whitford said. Huxley smiled. "I call Private Cooper, guard detail." A young white soldier approached. He was nervous. His hands shook slightly. But he had rehearsed his testimony. Isaiah could see it in his eyes. The words had been fed to him, practiced until believable. "Private Cooper," Huxley began, "tell us what you observed." "Sir, I saw Corporal Miles spending long periods with the prisoners, talking quietly, sometimes touching them." Cooper's voice grew stronger. "It looked inappropriate, personal, not medical." "Did you report this?" Huxley asked. "Yes, sir, to Captain Huxley directly." "Thank you." Huxley turned to the panel. This pattern continued for days. Multiple guards witnessed it. All reported the same behavior. Isaiah's hands gripped the table edge. Lies built on lies. Truth was drowning beneath manufactured testimony. He had touched prisoners, while treating wounds, while pulling them from danger. Context had been stripped away. Only the accusation remained. "Bring in the prisoners," Whitford ordered. "Let them testify." Guards moved to the tent entrance. Isaiah's heart pounded. The women were coming. Everything depended on what happened next. The tent flap opened. Guards led the prisoners inside. All 128 women entered in formation. They walked slowly. Their thin bodies showed the effects of reduced rations. Hunger had carved their faces into sharp angles. Aiko limped near the front. Her leg was worse. She could barely walk. But she kept moving. Her eyes found Isaiah across the tent. She did not look away. The women were arranged in rows. They stood at attention. Discipline remained despite everything. They had been soldiers and nurses before capture. That training persisted. "These are enemy combatants," Huxley announced. He gestured broadly. "Women who fought against America, who killed our soldiers, yet Corporal Miles treated them with special favor, with affection reserved for allies." The women stood silent. Their faces revealed nothing. But Isaiah saw their tension. Fear lived beneath their calm exteriors. They knew what was coming. The threats that had been made. The consequences promised. "We will question them individually," Whitford said, "to establish the nature of their relationship with the accused." Huxley approached the prisoners. He stopped in front of Hannah, the elderly midwife who had first spoken the marriage vow. "You," he said, "step forward." Hannah moved slowly. Her age made each step difficult. She stood before the panel. An interpreter was brought forward, a young Japanese-American soldier who looked uncomfortable with his role. "Ask her about the marriage statement," Huxley ordered, "the vow she made to Corporal Miles." The interpreter spoke in Japanese. Hannah listened. Then she replied. Her voice was strong despite her frail body. The interpreter translated. "She says it was statement of gratitude, not romance. He saved their lives. They honored him for it." "Gratitude," Huxley repeated. He smiled. Or was it something more? Did Corporal Miles encourage this attachment? Did he spend extra time with you? Show special favor? More Japanese, more translation. "She says he showed humanity, something they did not expect from captors. He treated injuries, gave water, protected them. Nothing inappropriate." Huxley's smile faded. This was not going according to plan. "Ask her if she knows the consequences of lying. Remind her that food rations depend on truthful testimony." The interpreter hesitated. That threat was explicit, nakedly coercive. He translated anyway. His voice was quiet, ashamed. Hannah's face hardened. She spoke rapidly. Her words came out sharp, angry. The interpreter translated. "She says she already knows hunger. already knows suffering. She will not lie to avoid more. Truth is all she has left. A ripple moved through the tent. Officers shifted uncomfortably. This was supposed to be simple. Break the prisoners, get false confessions. Instead, they were watching defiance. "Next prisoner," Huxley snapped. His composure was cracking. "The young one with the injured leg." Aiko limped forward. She stood beside Hana. The two women created a united front. Aiko's English was better. She did not need the interpreter. "You," Huxley said. He pointed at Isaiah. "Did this man behave inappropriately with you?" Aiko looked directly at Isaiah. Her eyes held something powerful: respect, gratitude, truth. Then she turned back to Huxley. "He protected life when others wished to take it. He healed wounds when others would let us die." Her voice grew stronger. "If compassion is crime, then you must punish all of us." The tent went silent. Her words hung in the air. Simple, devastating, undeniable. "That's not what I asked," Huxley said. His voice had lost its confidence. "Answer the question. Was his conduct appropriate or inappropriate?" "His conduct was human," Aiko replied. "Perhaps that is inappropriate here. Perhaps humanity is forbidden. But we saw it. We will not deny it." Before Huxley could respond, something extraordinary happened. The women began to kneel, all 128. They knelt together. Their movement was synchronized, practiced. They knelt before Isaiah. Not in romance, not in servitude, in solidarity, in collective witness to truth. Their bodies formed a living testament. This man saved us. This man showed dignity. This man deserves honor. The tribunal erupted. Officers stood. Guards moved forward uncertain. The prisoners had just performed an act of organized rebellion. Silent but powerful. Impossible to misinterpret. Whitford pounded his gavel. "Order! Everyone remain calm." But the women did not rise. They stayed kneeling. Their message clear, united, unbreakable. The tent remained chaos for several minutes. Officers shouted orders. Guards tried to restore formation, but the women would not move. They stayed kneeling, their quiet defiance louder than any shout. Finally, Whitford's gavel silenced everyone. "Remove the prisoners," he ordered. His face was red, angry, but also uncertain. This had become complicated, messy, exactly what the tribunal was meant to avoid. Guards herded the women out. They rose slowly. Their knees ached from kneeling on hard ground, but their faces showed satisfaction. They had spoken truth. No interrogation could change what had just happened. Aiko was the last to leave. She glanced back at Isaiah. Her expression said everything. "We tried. We bore witness. Now it is in their hands." The tent emptied of prisoners. Only the officers and Isaiah remained. The silence felt heavy, oppressive. Whitford consulted with the other judges. They spoke in whispers, heads bent together, debating. Huxley stood rigid at his table. His case had collapsed. The prisoners had refused to cooperate, had publicly defended Isaiah. That was not supposed to happen. Enemy combatants did not side with black soldiers against white officers. The natural order had been violated. "Captain Huxley," Whitford finally said, "do you have additional evidence?" Huxley's jaw worked. He shuffled through papers. "Sir, the prisoner testimony is clearly coached. Miles manipulated them, made them feel indebted. That's why they defend him." "That's speculation," one of the other judges said. His name was Colonel Morrison. He looked older than Whitford, tired. "We have no evidence of manipulation, only evidence of prisoners expressing gratitude." "Gratitude that crosses boundaries," Huxley insisted. His voice was desperate now. "They proclaimed they would marry him. That's romantic attachment." "Or cultural expression," Morrison replied. He looked at Isaiah. Corporal Miles, stand. Isaiah stood. His legs felt unsteady, but he locked his knees, remained upright. Did you encourage romantic attachment from these prisoners? Morrison asked. No, sir, Isaiah replied. His voice was clear, strong. I provided medical care. I protected them from harm. They expressed gratitude in their own cultural way. I did not encourage or reciprocate anything inappropriate. Did you spend excessive time with them? I spent the time necessary to treat their injuries, sir. Many were seriously wounded. Medical care requires time and attention. Morrison nodded. He turned to Whitford. I see no evidence of misconduct, only evidence of a medic doing his duty under difficult circumstances. He paused. The prisoner's testimony supports innocence, not guilt. Whitford's face was conflicted. He wanted to believe that. Isaiah could see it. But pressure from other officers was enormous. Huxley represented institutional racism, the entire segregated system. Ruling in Isaiah's favor meant challenging that system. We need to deliberate, Whitford said. Clear the tent, everyone except the panel. Isaiah was escorted outside. He stood in the bright sunlight, blinking. The morning had stretched into afternoon. Hours had passed inside that tent. It felt both endless and instantaneous. Other soldiers gathered at a distance, watching, waiting for the verdict. Isaiah's future hung in the balance. Minutes ticked by. Each one felt longer than the last. The sun climbed higher. Isaiah stood outside the tribunal tent. Sweat ran down his back. The heat was oppressive. Or maybe that was just fear manifesting physically. He could not tell anymore. Private Larkin approached. He stayed at a respectful distance, close enough to show support, far enough to avoid being questioned himself. Everyone's talking, he said quietly, about what the prisoners did, about them kneeling. Isaiah said nothing. Words felt impossible. His throat was too tight. Some officers are angry, Larkin continued. Say it proves you corrupted them. Others say it proves your innocence. He paused. Nobody knows which way this will go. The tent flap opened. A sergeant emerged. Corporal Miles, you're recalled. Isaiah's heart jumped. This was it, the verdict. He walked back inside on legs that barely functioned. The judges sat in their positions. Their faces revealed nothing. Isaiah stood before them, waiting. The silence stretched unbearably long. Corporal Miles, Whitford began. His voice was formal, official. This tribunal has considered all evidence, witness testimony, the prisoner statements, your service record. He paused. The charges of fraternization and romantic misconduct are dropped. Insufficient evidence. Relief flooded through Isaiah. His knees almost buckled. But Whitford was not finished. However, the colonel continued, your conduct showed questionable judgment. You allowed prisoners to develop inappropriate attachment. Even if unintentional, this reflects poor leadership. He picked up a paper. You are formally reprimanded. This reprimand will remain in your service record. The words stung, but they were not destruction, not court-martial, not prison. Isaiah had survived. Barely. Additionally, Whitford said, you are commended for medical service during the explosion. You saved multiple lives. That bravery deserves recognition despite other concerns, a commendation and a reprimand. The Army's compromise. Neither guilt nor innocence. Just enough punishment to satisfy racists. Just enough recognition to avoid scandal. Perfect bureaucratic balance. You're dismissed, Whitford concluded. Return to regular duties. Isaiah saluted. He turned and left the tent. Outside, he breathed deeply. Air had never tasted so good. Freedom. Relative freedom. He was still a soldier. Still segregated. Still facing racism daily. But he was not in chains. Not destroyed. Not erased. He walked across the camp. Other soldiers stared. Some looked disappointed. They had wanted to see him broken. Others looked surprised. They had expected conviction. Isaiah kept walking. He did not owe them explanations. Near the supply area, he saw Captain Huxley. The captain's face was murderous. He had lost. His carefully constructed case had collapsed. His racism had been exposed. That would have consequences for him, too. Huxley locked eyes with Isaiah. The hatred there was pure, undiluted. This was not over for him. He would carry this failure forever. His attempt to destroy a black soldier had backfired. That wound would never heal. Isaiah kept walking. Huxley's hatred was not his problem. He had larger concerns. The women. What would happen to them now? Would they be punished for defending him? The army did not forgive defiance even from prisoners. He changed direction, headed toward the POW enclosure. He needed to know they were safe, that his survival had not cost them everything. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, but Isaiah barely felt it. Relief and worry competed in his chest. The tribunal was over, but the aftermath remained uncertain. The POW enclosure appeared quiet. Too quiet. Isaiah approached carefully. Guards stood at the gate. They recognized him, but their expressions were unreadable, neither hostile nor welcoming. "They back yet?" Isaiah asked. "The prisoners?" One guard nodded. "Just returned, under orders not to interact with anyone." Isaiah's chest tightened. So punishment had been administered. Isolation. Silence. The army's way of making them regret their testimony. "Can I check their medical condition? That's still my duty." The guards exchanged glances. Finally, one shrugged. "Make it quick. No talking unless necessary." Isaiah entered the enclosure. The women sat in small groups. They looked exhausted. The morning had drained them, kneeling, testifying, facing consequences. War kept taking from them. Aiko saw him first. Her face brightened slightly. Relief flickered in her eyes. He had survived. That meant their testimony had mattered. Their suffering had purpose. Isaiah approached slowly. Professional distance, medical purpose only. The guards were watching. Any mistake now would restart the accusations. He knelt beside Aiko, examined her leg without speaking. The infection was worse, much worse. She needed real medicine, hospital care, not field treatments. He rewrapped the bandage with clean cloth. His hands moved efficiently, gently. Aiko watched his face. She understood the silence, the need for caution, but her eyes spoke volumes. "Thank you. We saw you. We defended truth." Hana approached. The elderly midwife moved with difficulty. Her knees were bruised from kneeling. Isaiah checked them. They would heal. But the pain must be significant. She was too old for such physical stress. "You okay?" Isaiah whispered. The guards were focused elsewhere momentarily. "We okay," Hana replied. Her English was limited, but sufficient. "You okay? That is enough." Isaiah moved through the group, checking injuries, distributing what limited supplies he had. The women remained mostly silent, but their expressions showed satisfaction. They had fought. They had won. Not everything, but enough. 20 minutes passed. Isaiah finished his rounds. He stood to leave. Aiko stopped him. She pulled something from her pocket. A folded paper. Another one. She pressed it into his hand quickly. The guards did not notice. Isaiah gripped the paper tight. He would not lose this one. He left the enclosure without looking back. The guards locked the gate behind him. Final. Separating him from the women who had saved his future. He walked behind the medical tent. Found privacy. unfolded the paper carefully. Inside was another charcoal drawing. This one showed the tribunal, the women kneeling, their unified stance. Below it, Iko had written new words. "You showed us what America said you could not be. Remember that." Isaiah's vision blurred. Tears threatened. He blinked them back. Not here. Not where others could see. He refolded the paper, placed it with the first drawing in his chest pocket. These were his truth, his proof of worth. When the world told him lies, these images would remind him. The afternoon was ending. Long shadows stretched across the camp. Isaiah stood alone, but not empty. The women's courage had filled something in him, something the army tried to hollow out. Dignity, self-worth, humanity. He returned to his barracks. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles. The racism would not end. The segregation would persist. But he had survived. He had been seen by women who owed him nothing, who risked everything. That mattered more than any commendation. Morning arrived with unusual activity. Trucks rolled into camp, supply vehicles, transport vehicles. Soldiers moved with purpose. Something was changing. Isaiah felt it in the air. Private Larkin found him at breakfast. "The prisoners are being relocated," he said. His voice was low. "Orders came last night. They're moving to a processing facility. Better conditions, supposedly." Isaiah's stomach dropped. "When?" "Today, maybe an hour." Larkin glanced around. "Thought you should know." Isaiah abandoned his breakfast. He walked quickly toward the POW enclosure. His chest felt tight. He had not prepared for goodbye, had not considered permanent separation. The women had been his responsibility, his purpose. Now they were leaving. The enclosure was organized chaos. Women gathered their few possessions. Guards directed them into groups. The trucks idled nearby, exhaust fumes mixed with morning mist. Isaiah stood at the fence. He could not enter, not during this transition, too many officers present, too many eyes watching. But he could observe, could bear witness to their departure. Iko saw him. She limped to the fence. They stood separated by wire, close but unreachable. Her expression held sadness mixed with gratitude. Everything unspoken passed between them. "You will be okay," she said. Her English had improved during their time together. "You are strong, stronger than they know." "You too," Isaiah replied. His voice was rough. "You're all strong. Thank you for everything." "No, thank you," Iko said. She shook her head. "We see truth. We speak truth. That is simple, not heroic." She paused. "You are heroic, remember." Other women approached the fence. They could not all speak. Language barriers prevented it, but their faces showed the same message: gratitude, respect, recognition. Everything Isaiah had been denied by his own army they gave freely. Hannah pushed to the front. The elderly midwife bowed deeply. Her gesture was formal, traditional. It carried weight beyond words. When she straightened, her eyes were wet. "Good man," she said in English. "Good heart. World needs more." A sergeant called out, "Load up! Move out!" The women turned away from the fence. They formed orderly lines. Years of military discipline guided them even now. They walked toward the trucks, each step taking them further from Isaiah, further from this chapter of their lives. Isaiah's hands gripped the fence. His knuckles went white. He wanted to say more, to express the depth of his gratitude, how they had saved him in ways beyond the tribunal. But words felt inadequate, insufficient. The first truck loaded, then the second. The women climbed aboard with difficulty. Their weakened bodies struggled with the high steps. Guards offered no assistance. They merely watched, impatient to complete their task. Iko was in the third truck. She sat near the back. Her eyes found Isaiah one last time. She pressed her hand against the truck side, a gesture of connection. Isaiah raised his hand in return, a silent acknowledgement, a goodbye that transcended language and circumstance. The trucks started moving. Their engines roared. Dust clouds rose. Isaiah watched them roll away. One by one they disappeared down the camp road, taking the women toward uncertain futures, toward processing centers, toward eventual repatriation, maybe, toward whatever waited beyond this island. The last truck vanished around a bend. Silence settled. The enclosure stood empty. Wire fences surrounded nothing. Isaiah remained at his position, staring at where they had been. The space felt impossibly empty. Other soldiers drifted away, back to their duties. The spectacle was over, but Isaiah could not move. Not yet. He needed this moment, this acknowledgement of loss. These women had changed him, had shown him his own worth. Now they were gone. Finally he turned, walked away from the empty enclosure. Each step felt heavy, but necessary. Life continued. Duty remained. The war would end eventually. Everyone would go home, everyone who survived. Isaiah would carry these memories, these lessons, these truths, forward into whatever future awaited. Late afternoon found Isaiah in his barracks. He sat on his bunk. The thin mattress sagged beneath him. Everything felt different now, quieter, emptier. The women's presence had created purpose. Now only routine remained. Other soldiers moved through their spaces, preparing for evening formation, talking about rumors, baseball scores, home, normal life. Isaiah felt disconnected from it all. He existed in the same physical space but occupied different emotional territory. He pulled out Aiko's drawings, both of them, the explosion scene, the tribunal, 2 moments captured in charcoal, 2 truths preserved against official lies. Isaiah studied them carefully. Every line, every shadow. Aiko had real talent. Before the war, she taught children. Now she drew memories of survival. War changed everyone's purpose. Private Larkin entered. He carried letters. Mail call came. He handed Isaiah an envelope. From home. Isaiah recognized his mother's handwriting. Careful cursive, each letter precisely formed. She had taught herself to write as an adult. It remained her pride. He opened the envelope, read quickly. His mother wrote about the farm, about church, about neighbors, normal life continuing thousands of miles away. She asked about his health, his safety, whether he was eating enough. Mother concerns that transcended war. She ended with her usual blessing. Come home safe. That's all I ask. Come home. Isaiah folded the letter. His throat was tight. Home felt impossibly distant, not just in miles, in experience. He had lived through things his mother could never understand, had faced racism that made Mississippi's segregation look subtle, had been saved by enemy prisoners who showed more humanity than his own commanders. How could he explain that in a letter? How could words capture the complexity? He could not write the truth. Censors would read everything. Anything controversial would be deleted. His mother would receive blank spaces where his real thoughts lived. So he would write safe platitudes. I'm fine, healthy, doing my duty. Everything generic and meaningless. The real story would wait. Maybe forever. Some truths were too heavy to share. Outside voices called for formation. Isaiah tucked the drawings back into his pocket, placed his mother's letter carefully in his footlocker. He stood and straightened his uniform. Life continued. He would continue with it. Formation was routine, roll call, announcements, dismissed. Isaiah moved through it mechanically. His mind was elsewhere, still at the fence, still watching trucks disappear, still holding on to something already gone. After formation came rumors, always rumors. The war was ending. The war would continue for years. Troops would rotate home. Troops would deploy to Japan. Nobody knew anything. Everyone claimed inside knowledge. Isaiah ignored it all. Speculation changed nothing. He walked to the edge of camp, found a quiet spot overlooking the ocean. The water stretched endlessly, gray under cloudy skies. Waves rolled in steady rhythm, nature's indifference to human suffering. The sea did not care about tribunals or racism or war. It simply existed, eternal and unconcerned. Isaiah sat on a boulder, watched the sunset approach. Colors bled across the horizon, orange and purple, beauty persisting despite everything. War could not stop sunsets, could not prevent waves. Some things remained untouchable. He thought about the women. Where were they now? Had they reached the processing facility? Were they being treated humanely? Or had they traded one camp for another? One set of guards for different ones equally cruel? He would never know. That uncertainty would haunt him, but he would remember. That was his responsibility, to carry their courage forward, to honor their testimony by living with dignity, by refusing to let racism destroy his humanity. They had seen his worth. He would prove them right. Darkness fell. Stars appeared. Millions of them. The same stars visible from Mississippi, from anywhere, connected despite distance. Isaiah stood, walked back toward barracks. Tomorrow would bring new duties, new challenges. He would face them carrying invisible armor. The knowledge that he had been seen, valued, defended. Nothing could take that away. 3 weeks passed. The camp settled into routine. Isaiah continued his medical duties. He treated soldiers, processed paperwork, existed in the segregated structure that defined everything. But something had changed internally. He moved through the world differently, stood taller, spoke clearer. The tribunal had not broken him. It had revealed his strength. News filtered in gradually. The war was winding down. Japan's surrender seemed inevitable. Troops would eventually return home. Dates remained uncertain, but the direction was clear. Everyone felt it. The energy changed. Anticipation replaced dread. Isaiah received no news about the women. They had vanished into the military processing system. He asked occasionally, inquired through proper channels, but information was scarce. The Army protected its bureaucracy carefully. Privacy and security justified all silence. He had stopped expecting answers. Instead, he focused on present duties, on treating men who needed help, on maintaining his own humanity despite constant pressure to surrender it. Every day became an act of quiet resistance, being excellent, being undeniable, refusing to confirm their prejudices. Captain Huxley had been reassigned, transferred to a logistics unit. Officially, it was described as needed elsewhere. Everyone knew the truth. His failed prosecution had embarrassed him, cost him credibility. Racism had limits when it became too visible, too obvious. The Army preferred its discrimination subtle. Huxley had been too blatant. Isaiah felt no satisfaction at Huxley's transfer, only exhaustion. The system remained unchanged. Individual racists could be moved, but the structure persisted. New Huxleys would emerge, different faces, same hatred. One morning Isaiah walked to the ridge, his usual spot overlooking the ocean, the place where he came to think, to remember, to carry forward the lessons of recent months. He pulled out Aiko's drawings. They were worn now, edges soft from repeated handling. But the images remained clear. The explosion. The tribunal. 2 moments frozen in charcoal. Physical proof of truth. Below the drawings he had tucked Aiko's note, her final words. "You showed us what America said you could not be. Remember that." Isaiah read those words repeatedly. They had become his anchor. When the world insisted he was less than human, These words proved otherwise. Not American propaganda, not segregated army lies, but testimony from those who had witnessed him at his best, who had no reason to lie, no benefit from defending him. The ocean stretched before him. Endless, indifferent, eternal. Isaiah felt small against such vastness, but not insignificant. The women had taught him the difference. Size was not importance. Power was not worth. A single act of compassion could echo forward, could change trajectories, could matter in ways invisible to those focused only on victory and domination. Wind came off the water. It carried salt smell. Seabirds cried overhead. Normal sounds, peaceful sounds. War had not destroyed everything. Beauty persisted. Humanity persisted, even in the darkest corners, especially there. Isaiah stood, placed the drawings back in his pocket, over his heart, where they belonged, where they would stay until he could return home. Until he could tell his mother the real story, until he could find words adequate to the experience. But even without words, he would carry forward what mattered. The knowledge that 128 women had seen his humanity, had defended it, had knelt for it. In a world designed to deny his worth, they had created proof otherwise. They had given him something no tribunal could destroy, no racism could erase, no hatred could diminish. Truth, dignity, recognition, the simple profound acknowledgement that he mattered, that his life held value, that his compassion was not weakness but strength. Isaiah walked back toward camp. The sun climbed higher. Morning duties waited. Life continued. He would continue with it, carrying his silent victory, his private triumph. The thing no one could see but everyone who met him would feel. He was not broken. He was not less than. He was not what they said he was. He was what those women had seen. Human. Brave, worthy, and he would spend the rest of his life proving them right.